Welcome to the video format of the Entrepreneur Lifestyle Podcast. And if you haven't yet, please do subscribe to our podcast using the link below. And now enjoy this interview. Today, I'm here with Josh Little, who's the founder of 4 tech companies, Maestro, Bloomfire, Quizzer, and Volley, who've collectively been used by hundreds of millions of people. He's a badass entrepreneur, and I do not say that lightly. Josh, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. That's got to be the best intro ever.
Oh, well, I know you've been introduced many times, so I'll definitely take that as a compliment. So let's kind of dive into your story a little bit for the audience listening that kind of don't know you. What is your story in 60 seconds or less to give an audience a better idea of who you are, where you've been, and what you're currently doing?
Yeah, 60 seconds or less. Well, I'm a teacher by training that decided after a year in public school that wasn't my thing, and then trying to figure out what can someone with these skills do for the world. I learned sales was something that I was good at, successful at. I worked at 3 Fortune 500 companies, making hops from sales to sales training to marketing. And it was really scratching my own itch that I started my first company almost 15 years ago now, Maestro, which was an e-learning company. And from the profits of Maestro, I built a social learning platform called Bloomfire. It was acquired in 18 months. And then I thought I was done. I thought I was retired. And then after a year, got bored and came back and built a company called Quizzer. So if you've ever taken a quiz on social media, like which Harry Potter character are you, you've probably used Quizzer because it's used by 20,000 of the top publishers of the world. Then I thought I was really done after Quizzer and took 4 years off, but then just felt like I hadn't built my magnum opus and spent a couple of years trying to find the right opportunity. And that's where the pandemic and my love of asynchronous video communication and thinking about how to communicate at work all came together to build Volley, which helps remote teams communicate better, increase connection, and reduce meetings. Volley's a video messaging app, and that's what I'm focused on right now.
Brilliant. So, but yeah, before we started recording this, I was saying there's so many different ways in which I can take this conversation. I'd like to start by diving into building up tech teams, because something that you mentioned is you love the early days of building a tight-knit team of the right people to actually build a product and move things forward. And you've done this successfully so many different times. I want to know, like, what are some of the secret sauce that you do that makes tech companies work? Because I think a lot of people right now, they're working online, they're attempting to build things up. What is it that you do differently? Or what are some of the things that you find very effective that has allowed you to be so successful multiple times?
Well, it's a combination of a number of things, but some of the things that come to mind as you ask the question are, getting the right people. If the founding team is everything, just getting the right founders in place. With Volley, I won the co-founder lottery. All 4 of us have had successful exits. We're, adults. We've been there. We've all failed. So just getting the right team that has not only the will and the excitement to build, but also the hands that can actually build it is also important. So the founding team of Volley, we've got 2 engineers, a designer, and me, the fat guy. So, who's does all the front of the house stuff, marketing and sales, all of those things. So getting the right mix in the beginning is crucial. And then once you have that right, then as you layer people on, if you got that first seed right, then you'll continue to accelerate and hire more and more talented people as you build the team. So that's one. And another is just, I found in hiring your first salesperson, it's if you hire the most talented quota carrying rep at company X, you're probably going to fail because they don't know how to come into a startup. So I found the most success hiring someone that I call this role ambassador, which is just a happy, shiny person that comes. They don't know how to sell, but they know how to explain things, and they're happy and they love your product. And they can show up at a conference, they can do a little bit of marketing, and they can also jump on a sales call and enthusiastically explain your product. And so those are some of the things I've done to kind of build the early team and get that mix right. And then it's just kind of rinse and repeat after that.
Okay, cool. So let's say someone's starting out and they don't have the track record and they're looking for some co-founders and they're wanting to build up their business and fill those gaps. Where would they go? What would you recommend to them to find the right people to help them plant that seed to build their business?
Well, it really depends on what you're trying to build and what kind of business. A lot of times I'll hear this question from students when I speak at a university, like, how do I find an engineer? Well, how many engineers do you have as friends? None. Well, let's start there. Make friends with some engineers, right? So how do I do that? Well, how do you make friends with anyone? Figure out where engineers hang out, show up at those places, those meetups, be interested in their lives, connect with them, go do things together, have lunch, share goals and aspirations, dreams, those sorts of things. It really starts with a friendship, and probably the seed of an idea or these goals or dreams that you have and something that you want to bring into the world. And if it's exciting enough, the right people will be attracted to that, but you've got to do the work and connecting and building friendships.
Yeah, brilliant. Love that. So when we look into your speciality, like where you're best, and I'm not going to describe you as the fat man, the marketing and sales guru is where I'm going to go for that. All right. So when we look into marketing and sales, and we look nowadays, especially for tech companies, I think a lot of them are great with product, not that great with sales and marketing. So some would say you're a rare breed, but like being very, very good at that. Let's say someone's starting out and they're wanting to be able to be effective at sales and marketing online. What have you found are some of the tools that have been effective in building up that audience and creating that raving fan base?
Well, the base ingredient of all of it is be remarkable. And this is a Seth Godin thing.
Yes.
Like if you're not remarkable, in the definition of the word remarkable means willing to remark, that someone has to be willing to remark, willing to talk about what you're doing. If what you're doing and the way that you're doing isn't remarkable, don't go any further. It doesn't matter how many ads you buy. It doesn't matter how much, how many conferences you show up. If you're not remarkable, you're going to lose. So the base ingredient is to be remarkable. And anyone who's worked in any of my companies knows that this is the thing, like the way that we build the feature, the way that we present this to the world, the way that we show up to customers, the way that we, engage our audience, all has to be remarkable. Meaning, would somebody talk about that? Would somebody say, wow, that was really good? Well, if not, let's make it really good. What would make it really amazing? Like what would make this podcast that I'm on right now remarkable, that somebody would say, oh my gosh, I heard this podcast. You got to hear about it. That's what I'm trying to do right now, probably very poorly, but that's what I try to do in everything that I do. So that's probably the number one ingredient. It's probably 90% of everything. And then whether your creative looks right or you've got the right headline, that kind of falls out of being remarkable, yes. Right?
Brilliant. Love that. And I definitely think being remarkable, having the wow factor, having people remark about you and speak about you makes a lot of sense. Are there any things that you do to constantly look at that to make sure that you're building a product for your customers and not just the one that you want to build?
Ooh, that's a deep one. So yes, if no one is volunteering to share with the world what you're doing, you're probably not doing something that's remarkable or exciting. This is hard to know. You just don't. When you don't see it, you don't know that you should be seeing it. And this is something with Volley that we're seeing, which is really exciting. Is people we don't know just volunteering, like, oh my gosh, have you seen Volley? This is unbelievable. They built it, sort of message. And it's not like I don't know that person. I didn't prompt them to say that thing. And so when we see this sort of thing daily, we're like, okay, well, we're onto something here. Like the idea of what we're doing is remarkable. Maybe we haven't nailed the product yet, but as soon as we do, we put the remarkability of that message with the remarkability of the product. And that's going to be kind of a runaway train of growth, hopefully.
Cool. Love that. Yeah. And I definitely think that it's very evident that what you're aiming to do is to create something that's remarkable. And I think a lot of people don't spend enough time doing that. How do you manage attempting to make everything perfect, which I think a lot of tech entrepreneurs struggle with, versus making something exceptional and kind of stopping there? And how do you make that balancing act?
Oh yeah, you have to have a bias towards shipping. Otherwise you'll never put anything out into the world. Nothing will ever be perfect. If you look at the evolution of just our videos that we use for marketing, we started with very, very imperfect things, and they still exist in the world and are still used. But every time we just keep iterating. And so both myself and the founding team, and it's kind of the culture at Volley, it's nothing we've ever really stated, but we just have this desire to ship every day, ship some immense value, whatever we can to a user. We launch products too early. We launch features before we've combined them. We don't put a lot of spin on them. We just ship value as soon and as often as we can. And a lot of times what that looks like is something very imperfect. But, I had a compliment from one of our users the other day, who's CEO of a marketing company, actually, who said, dude, your marketing is amazing. And I'm like, dude, do you know that it's just me and like 20% of my time that I'm doing this? So I feel like it's terrible because I can barely get the time to do it. Because Volley's a very small team. At this point, it's 9 engineers, our designer, head of product, and myself. And I'm also raising money and taking care of finances and legal stuff and whatever, doing QA as well. So if you have the bias to ship and are less worried about perfection will come, or you'll one-up yourself each time that you ship, just naturally wanting to be better.
And when you're looking at marketing and using 20% of your time, there are some people that have got a team of 20 and still struggling to market online, right? So is it mainly that remarkable thing that you find is the organic raving fans that is most effective? Or are there other things that you do on top of that you find is effective with creating that marketing funnel and really building awareness for the products at the moment that's Volley?
Yeah, I think if you don't get remarkability or that magic right, it doesn't matter how many people you hire, you're just going to dilute more and more of a bland message that's out there. So you as the founder or your core team have to get that magic before you can continue to reproduce that magic. So that's very much what I try to get right, is just like creating something that's magical, an experience that's magical, and engaging with users in a way that's magical. Volley, still at this point, I'm able to kind of interact with new users. They get added to a conversation with the team and myself, and I very much engage with any users that's willing to engage. This is totally not scalable long term, but sure. Why wouldn't a founder take the opportunity to have a front row seat with their user the moment that they download the app and hear from them, like where the points of confusion or friction or how excited they are about the app? And that's been tremendously and immensely helpful to us. But it also creates a little moment of magic. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I didn't think you would answer. This is crazy. And I'm like, well, this is not gonna last very long, but it's fun to be able to do. So if I don't get that right myself, I don't know how I'm going to be able to hire someone and expect them to get that right and to create this magical experience for a new user as we scale.
And I think what's fascinating is the way in which you're speaking is the ability you have to be able to focus on the user and create that magic experience from the beginning as soon as they download it. I think for those listening, if you can think as soon as someone interacts with your brand, how you can give them that magic, then that'd be incredibly useful for you. So absolutely love that. When we look into what drives you, you mentioned that this life has no meaning outside of the context of the people we share it with. How important is family and that why for you in doing this again and again? Because you've retired twice and you're back in it, right? So what is that why that keeps you going? Is it problem solving? Like, what is it that keeps you gives you that drive when so many entrepreneurs are out there losing passion for their business?
Well, I've failed at retiring twice, is what my wife would say, but it's just this constant, insatiable desire to create. I've realized that my life mission is to create beautiful things. There's no more challenging creative endeavor than building a company. Yes, I can make beautiful things by building a piece of furniture or a cool build of a 4x4 or helping a neighbor or my free fruit stand that's out in front of my house. Those are beautiful things, but there's nothing that taxes me like building a company. It just takes everything that I have. And as a creative, it's kind of this addictive sort of thing that you can't really get this same level of creative flex or the same level of atrophy as a creative as you do in trying to gather a team and build something big for the world and make a dent, right? It takes everything that I have. And that's why I kind of keep coming back to it. And I'm like, is that really how I walk off the field? No. Okay, that's not it. And what does it look like? And so Volley is very much for me waiting for the right pitch, to crank one over the fence. I know I have it in me. I've hit a double, I've hit a single in entrepreneurial world, but I know I can crank one over the fence. Everyone who knows me knows I can. And so Volley is very much kind of waiting for the right opportunity at the right time, to do something big for the world. And that's very much what we're trying to do.
Oh, amazing. So when we look into kind of your journey and making things happen consistently, is there anything that you do as part of your routine that you find is just brilliant to keep you on track when you're managing so many different aspects of the business, from finance, legal, raising funds, marketing? There's so much going on. How do you keep yourself on track?
Well, the real answer to that in the last 3 companies is I don't. I've said many times that from when I start a company to when I sell a company, I'm like a fatter, sicker, less healthy version of myself. It's true. The last 3, I'm just worse a human being than I am when I started. And it's because it just takes so much, right? But with Volley, I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to become a thinner, healthier, more beautiful version of myself as I go along. And that takes a lot of concentration. So it's really kind of my morning routine that keeps me centered on those goals. And I spend a couple hours each morning in exercise, in meditation, in prayer, in study, all the things that I need to feed myself or pay myself first so that I can be the human being that I need to be throughout the day, and then keep accelerating with those same goals tomorrow. And so it's really that morning routine that kind of keeps me centered. Now, jury's out. We're a year into Volley. Maybe I still become a fatter, sicker version of myself, but my hope is that, I'm celebrating my birthday next year with a 1 in front of my weight instead of a 2 in front of my weight, which is a lifelong goal, and very hard for someone to do who's 6'3". But that's my goal. That's what I'm working on right now.
Brant, well, I wish you the best of luck with making that happen. And when we look into what you're doing at the moment, right, it's helping remote teams better communicate. And you've got Volley as the example service that you guys have for that. With everyone working, well, I say everyone, but a lot of people working remotely at present, what do you think are some of the things that, if you were, to be brought in as a consultant to help their team better communicate, apart from bringing in Volley, which is obviously game changing and everyone listening has to check it out. But apart from that, is there any other things and other strategies that you use to help teams have that clear communication so they can get more done and be more productive?
Well, it's really hard if you're remote. And this is what the world realized quickly last year when we all were kind of forced to go remote, because you only have 2 ways to communicate. You can either type or you can talk. And there's the same ways that we've had for hundreds of years. Today, we have more evolved digital versions of typing and talking, and they're called Slack and Zoom. But still, they each have their own poison that you have to pick. So when you choose to type, you're choosing to do something you're 7 times slower at naturally than this gift that we have talking. We're elite athletes at this thing called communication, this thing that we're doing right now. But the problem with talking is that it's synchronous. We have to stop what we're doing. We have to get in the same place. We have to have obligatory small talk, deal with technical difficulties now, and all of the bad behaviors that follow in meetings. And so when you only have those 2 methods, you're either slacking your face off all day or you're back-to-back Zooms all day, and different teams feel different pain for different reasons. So what we're trying to do is invent a new way to communicate that takes the best of both of those, the flexibility of slacking and the richness of Zooming, put those together. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with Volley. So I know you said what other things, but that's kind of the thing. That's the number one thing that you could do to help your team communicate and be in the constant flow of communication in a very rich way that doesn't interrupt others. And that's what the magic we had when we were in an office together, is we could pop in, we'd see each other in the hall, we'd have these ad hoc interactions that in isolation felt like they weren't much, but when you take them away, they equaled relationship, they equaled culture. And it was Simon Sinek just released a video where he said, hey, we're living on borrowed time here. We're only doing as well as we are because we're like drawing on the existing relationships that we had before we went remote. All of these new relationships that we are trying to make are just a lot harder. And it's because you can't you can't, like, Zoom happy hours is forced fun. It just won't happen, right? So the mix, if you're remote and communicating well, is some version of the rich asynchronous communication, and that's the nut that we're very much trying to crack with Volley, kind of bringing the best of both of those, and allowing remote teams to say what they need to say and move on with their day.
Cool. So from my understanding, and mark me if I'm wrong, but it's basically Slack, but you're sending videos. Is that Volley, or have I missed the mark?
No, that's it. It's I often say it's like texting, but with video, which is not a thing, I know, but that's the idea. And people are like, "Oh, what would that even look like?" Yeah, well, it looks something like Volley. Go to our website, check it out. You'll see. But that's right. And while Slack, they just launched a clips feature. You can create a video in Slack, just like you can create a video and text someone a video, but no one does. So Volley's very much a video first communication platform. Therefore, when you go into Volley, you see a camera that's facing you. You see a live view of yourself. You see a record button in the bottom of that view. Yeah. So very much like Snapchat, right? So what do you do there? Well, you record a video. And so 76% of volleys sent are video volleys. Now we have text volleys, screen record volleys, voice volleys. If you have a bad hair day, you can share files and docs in Volley, but still all of those compile about 25% of interactions in Volley. 75% of interactions, or 76%, are actually the video volley. And that's why people come to volleys, because it helps them communicate better. I can say in 30 seconds what would take me 20 minutes typed up in an email, obsessed over, bullet pointed, format, indent, bold that. I'm going to add a link to this. We all know that drill of like obsessing about communication. Volley is very much a hit record, express your idea, flip your camera on, point to your whiteboard, show the problem, and send, and the rest of the team gets it and they can respond on their own time.
Brilliant. Love that. What a great note to end on. So for those interested, definitely, check out Volley. Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. If there was one last thing that you could leave our audience with today, what would that be?
Oh man, I'm just notoriously terrible at these out of the blue questions like this, but I would say play with all cards on the table. My mom used to like to play card games with all of the cards on the table, and I hated it because it took all the fun out of the game. But the way that you should build business is very much with all cards on the table. Everyone knows everything. There are no secrets among us, that we are fully transparent, that we are responsibly transparent with one another as we're building teams and with our users and with our customers. It's just a better way to be. It's a better way to build a business, and it's a better way to live. So Brilliant. That's what I'd say.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to have you. And for those listening, we will see you in the next one.